Good afternoon. I'm Richard Higgs from Harold Stevens. We are later life financial planning specialists based in Westbury on Trim on the High Street. I'm sure you've seen us. We specialise in later life financial planning, and on the back of last week's budget, I thought it'd be good to record a video on some tips for those of us in coming up to retirement or in retirement. And really it was all about pensions this time round, wasn't it? So we had the removal of the lifetime allowance from April 2023, its complete abolition from April 2024. We had the pension tax-free lump sum capped at 268,275. The annual allowance was increased from 40,000 to 60,000, the maximum that you can put into a pension in 1 year before paying extra tax charges. The money purchase annual allowance was increased from 4,000 to 10,000 from April. But there were no other changes really. The inheritance tax threshold was fixed, the income tax thresholds were fixed, as was the capital gains tax allowances. So all about pensions, significant changes to pension allowances, very, on the whole, really positive changes for those of you in later life or coming up to retirement. The increase in the annual allowance from 40 to 60,000 gives you much more scope now really to put higher, more significant pension contributions into your pension as you approach retirement. In fact, for those of you with a taxable income of 160,000, the effective rate of tax for those of you in that bracket is 51%. So if you could make a full pension contribution to bring your net income down from 160 to 100, would effectively save 51% tax and move that money, instead of to the government, that would go to your retirement pot. Really anyone with significant pension savings really in retirement, so you may have SIPs, personal pensions, any kind of company pensions where you perhaps have used up all your lifetime allowance. You may have opted out of a pension scheme because you were up to your lifetime allowance. That can all be reviewed again. So I would recommend to review those arrangements with a view to perhaps contributing more to those pension plans, or even drawing down now on those pension plans without the need to worry about lifetime allowance problems. So as I say, for anyone that's already used up their existing lifetime allowance, should definitely review their arrangements, because with the lifetime allowance being abolished, that gives you much more scope now to contribute or draw down on your pension plans. Remember, all your existing pension protections are still in place, so they will protect your potentially higher tax-free lump sum. So for any of you who has taken out some pension protection, I'm thinking fixed protection, individual protection, there was various protections that you could take out through the years. They still remain very valuable, so make sure you review those and take those into account with your pension planning. For income tax, there was no new announcements. They fixed the thresholds, as we know, till 2028. So that really means that there'll be a lot more people paying higher rate tax, you know, in the next few years. The dividend allowance, as we know, have been reduced from what are £2,000 of dividends tax-free now down to £1,000 next tax year, and then that's reducing again to £500 the following year. So really, again, a really good planning would be to make or maximise your pension contributions, because that offers tax relief at your highest rate of tax. For any couples, use your allowances in full. It becomes even more important now to use those allowances between a couple or a married couple. And For people that have got investment portfolios, remember a lot of that dividend income might now well be taxed with the reduction in the dividend allowance from £2,000 to £1,000 and then ultimately to £500. So ensure that you review your investment portfolios, making sure that you're maximising your ISA, the good old ISA allowance of £20,000. Consider investment bonds, which are non-income producing bonds, where all the investments, all the dividends and interest occur within the bond. So they now become a realistic option now because of the reduced allowances. Capital gains tax, again, no new announcements. It was confirmed that the capital gains exemption will reduce from what it is now, £12,000 down to £6,000 in April, and then down to £3,000 the following year. So again, making sure that you use that capital gains exemption. We're running out of time this tax year to use the full £12,000 exemption. Remember, if you don't use it, you effectively lose it each tax year. So really making sure that, again, those of you that have investment portfolios, you're locking in those gains and you're using your capital gains exemption to full. Inheritance tax, there was no new announcements to inheritance tax, so all the allowances are frozen. And so there's going to be a lot more people paying inheritance tax over the next few years. A recent YouGov poll indicated that inheritance tax is the most hated tax of all in the UK. I remember everything's been frozen now. Well, the nil rate band, the 325,000 of assets, that the standard allowance that attract 0% inheritance tax, that's been fixed now since 2009, and then it will be fixed all the way through to 2028. And likewise, the residence nil rate band will be fixed from 2020 to 2028. So I worked out what those allowances would have been if they'd been index linked for all that time, and the nil rate band would be £537,000 in 2028 if it had literally been indexed with inflation. And the residence nil rate band, the amount of tax-free allowance on your house, would be £233,000 by 2028. So it seems relatively unfair, but it's taxed by stealth. So as your assets rise, there'll be more and more of you that are going into the inheritance tax thresholds. So again, as I always say, making sure that you take action and take advice with regard to your inheritance tax, which effectively is a voluntary tax for people that haven't kind of planned ahead for the future. Just a little bit on savings investments. ISAs still remain the same at £20,000. The most effective way of shielding your savings and investments from the taxman still remains the ISA. And there was mention made of the green savings bond, which pays a gross interest of 4.2%. And topically, it offers a 100% guarantee with no limit. So that's a brief run through of the budget from last week. Hopefully that was useful. Do book an initial meeting with myself if you feel that you need help or support around these planning areas, and we'll see you next time. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.